Welcome to the Story Lab. One of the greatest science fiction stories that were never completed is the story of Crusade from the Babylon 5 universe. It is a shame that JMS did never get the chance to finish this story. Today, we will try to do it and come up with a completed version of Crusade. Crusade has one of the most interesting setups in all of history. A plague is devastating Earth. In 5 years, the plague will have adapted to human physiology. The crew of the Excalibur has less than that time to find a cure for it somewhere among the stars. But that might not be the only thing they find. JMS said that the story of the plague would have wrapped up rather soon in the planned 5-year run of Crusade, and that the series would have then turned towards other stories. We only ever got to see part of the first season, but we likely already saw several of the setups for these other stories. The lab will not be able to come up with a story of the same scale. So, let's not. The plan for this experiment is to come up with a Crusade story based on the released 13 episodes that completes the story of the cure and hints at further stories, but does not explore them. Our story will be relatively contained. Consequently, our story will only have 3 seasons. Nonetheless, we shall try to imitate some of the feel of JMS's large-scale story writing based on how Babylon 5 developed from its early seasons to the later ones. Now that we know what we will do, let's look at what we got in the 13 episodes of Crusade that had been produced and aired. All characters and their current traits are set up. The Drakh are still around causing trouble. A first step towards a cure has been made in form of an incubator that keeps you safe of the infection for a limited period of time. Captain Gideon is very determined to find the cure and is willing to go to considerable lengths to accomplish this. Not all people agree with Gideon, and some have founded a movement against the Excalibur's mission. Gideon himself mistrusts the mysterious Galen, who has proven to have ulterior motives from time to time. The mysterious Volon-like box is around. Gideon's old ship encountered a weird shadow hybrid drone that destroyed it. More character traits have been revealed as well. Let's detail these character traits. Gideon, a gambler with a troubled past and present, but ultimately a hero in the making. He has trust issues and is determined to find out the truth about things that have been hidden from him. Matheson, the first officer, a telepath with mid-level abilities. He is a loyal friend to Gideon, but also reserved and has not yet had his moment to shine. Galen, a techno-wizard with mysterious purpose. Sometimes he just seems to be along for the ride, other times he seems to be hiding ulterior motives that clash heavily with Gideon. He seems deeply troubled, but where he will end up, he himself doesn't know. Ilison, an arrogant archaeologist that makes life more complicated for the crew, but even he seems to have an important part to play. Jurij, a thief-turned-hero in the wake of the attack of the Drakh on Earth. Her own homeworld had been destroyed by the Drakh, but she is not just out for revenge. In fact, she is discovering the ways in which she can help people and be a very important asset to the crew. Dr. Chambers, a kind and nurturing personality that is a fantastic doctor and very resourceful. Lockley, captain of Babylon 5 and at least in the first season an important character. She and Gideon become lovers, but she does not join the mission of the Excalibur that may eventually lead very far away from the parts of the galaxy we know. Almost more important to this story than the character traits are the themes of the story and how they would evolve. Here are some thoughts about that. Episode titles tend to be quotes or references to other stories with little twists to their meaning. With the progression of the series, the focus of the story may shift, but not the focus on the characters. The characters themselves all grow and change with the story. In fact, some if not all of them come out of the story quite differently to how they entered it. Whether better or worse is hard to know for sure. Related, no character has to stay in the role that he started with, including the captain. There are always much more things going on in the universe than what we get to see. Still, the events we do see are of great importance. Occasionally, there is an episode or B-plot with little influence on the larger story just for fun. The biggest threats at the beginning of the story might not have to be the biggest towards the end. It is relatively clear that the Drakh are not the main villains of the show. The show as a whole has a typical dramatic structure, starting with an introduction phase, then having the story escalate a bit, with the highlight or the core of the story coming in the middle. Afterwards there is a bit of a calming element before everything builds back up to the finale. The themes of knighthood, crusading, and the story of King Arthur and his knights may appear throughout our series. With all of those thoughts, let's get to work on the actual story. 13 episodes of the first season already exist. Their order is up for debate. Additionally, JMS revealed several plot points of further episodes of this season, which we have to incorporate. Thus, we will have 3 categories of episodes to work with. Episodes that were already written and produced. Episodes or plot points that were outlined by JMS. Completely new episodes that we come up with. During the telling of the story, we will mark these 3 types of episodes with red, brown and black. We will come up with 22 episodes per season, but as is always the case with so many stories, not all of them can be outlined in detail and some might just feel like filler. Possibilities for B-plots remain throughout. Let's just quickly list all our ingredients and put them together. The 13 filmed episodes. JMS's hints at what the others were about. All the themes of the story. All the characters' characterizations. The Drakh will not be the main enemy. Gideon and Galen's conflict of interest will come to a boiling point at some point. The core or highlight of the story, in the middle, shall be that they find the cure. The analysis is complete, let's see what we came up with. Crusade, Season 1. Episode 1, War Zone. Captain Matthew Gideon assembles the crew that will be with him on the experimental starship Excalibur. Their mission, explore the reaches of space to find a cure for the deadly Drakh virus that will destroy all life on Earth in 5 years. Their first destination, an archaeological site, where Max Eilerson's team has encountered a fleeing Drakh. Episode 2, The Long Road. Galen reunites with an old friend when the Excalibur comes to the aid of an Earth Force strip mining operation on the isolated agrarian world of Regular 4. Earth's efforts to obtain a mineral that may help in the search for a cure to the plague are hampered by a mysterious saboteur and the appearance of a gigantic golden dragon. Episode 3, Ruling from the Tomb. The threat of plague that hangs over Earth is God's will to the sacred Omega Doomsday cult. The Omegans try to speed up Judgment Day by planting a bomb at an anti-plague action conference. Gideon and Captain Lockley work together to stop it. Episode 4, Appearances and Other Deceits. A pair of Earth representatives come to Excalibur to give it a PR makeover for people back home. However, there may not be much of a ship left when an alien life force, a malevolent entity spread by human touch, also boards. Episode 5, Racing the Night. An advanced civilization dead some 1,000 years may hold the medical data the Excalibur crew seeks. Instead, the holographic explorer sent by Galen uncovers an ominous secret. Episode 6, The Needs of Earth. Gideon and Jurij feel free a notorious prisoner possessing stolen data crystals bearing important information of an alien culture. The captain discovers that treasure trove of data offers not medical science, but a special form of hope. The Memory of War. A virus-devastated planet may provide a paradigm for Earth's plight, if Excalibur's researchers survive their visit there. When night falls, crew members fall victim to a stalking creation of artificial intelligence. At the end, they find a nanotech gas incubator. To the ends of the Earth, the Excalibur gives chase to the ship that looks like the one that destroyed Gideon's ship, the Cerberus, many years ago. They chase down and destroy the ship, but it sends out a signal. This episode sees the Excalibur crew return to using their black uniforms. This was the first of the episodes that JMS only hinted at. Patterns of the Soul. Is the Drakh plague spreading? A journey to Theta 49 confirms Earth Command's fear that the planet's colonists carry the incubating virus. Another alarming discovery awaits. Theta's inhabitants were deliberately contaminated. And Jurij finds some of her people. The Path of Sorrows. On an unknown world rumored to be a place of healing, the crew finds an alien in a foggy glass ball whose curative powers are emotional rather than physical and who serves as a confessor for interstellar wayfarers. Gideon recalls his being abandoned in space during an EVA when his ship, the EAS Cerberus, was destroyed by an odd shadow-like ship. He also recalls his acquisition of an Apocalypse box, which is a secret. Matheson recalls his time as a Psi cop and his involvement in a telepath terrorist attack on the Psi Corps headquarters. Galen confronts the alien that it is an emotion vampire, though it protests that it is granting forgiveness. Galen recalls a time when his lover was critically wounded, and she talks of the afterlife and how she will try to contact him if she gets there. Galen, who doesn't believe in an afterlife, receives a garbled message that includes the words love and Galen. The next episode is the mid-season finale. End of the line, Gideon discovers that the ship which destroyed the Cerberus came from a secret Earth Force base. However, now we realize that Earth's work with shadow technology is far more advanced than previously believed. The research was obviously well underway even before President Santiago's assassination. There is a widespread conspiracy in the Earth Force surrounding the use of technology that has been forbidden by the Interstellar Alliance. Major Lee mentions that the Earth Alliance maintains a half-dozen secret research bases, but it isn't clear how many of them are researching shadow technology. They have also managed to keep it secret through many years and at least 3 administrations. Finally, from the end of this story, it is obvious that they are willing to go to great lengths to keep Captain Gideon from revealing their secret. Directions: Gideon is believed dead, after being shot and captured at the secret Earth Force base. The whole situation causes enormous problems aboard the Excalibur, until Jurij goes down to the planet and rescues Gideon. They destroy the facility and reveal the whole dark truth to the people of Earth. Sadly, there is not much reaction. This is the first episode that the lab came up with without basis. The Weller Forever, Galen, the technomage who uses advanced technology in magical ways, may be going too far. Jurij Nafil questions the technomage's motives when he spearheads a risky expedition to a hyperspace realm to find the Weller Forever. It turns out he wanted to do so because of a promise to his dead girlfriend. Visitors from down the street, events take a light-hearted turn in this The X-Files parody. Excalibur takes aboard a pair of paranoid aliens convinced that humans interfered with their planet for decades and that their government conspired to hide the facts. Things get stranger when one of their leaders shows up and reveals that his government is intentionally faking alien intervention to pacify a naturally rebellious population. Tried and true, while Jurij graduates as a thief under the guidance of her master and becomes a bit disillusioned by the guild's code, the Excalibur comes into a dangerous situation. Gideon has to ask the Apocalypse box for help, thereby revealing it to his friend Matheson. At the end, a senator contacts the ship, saying he has an important mission for them. They reluctantly decide to put their new uniforms back on for this. Each night I dream of home. Former Babylon 5 Medical Chief of Staff Dr. Stephen Franklin comes to the Excalibur to oversee an experiment that may strike a blow against the Drakh Plague. The Drakh strike a blow of their own, launching an attack after the experimentation gets underway. Captain Lockley, who had been saved by the Excalibur earlier, joins the fight. The rules of the game. Lorca 7 may hold medical secrets useful to Earth, if Gideon can gain access. He comes to Babylon 5 to negotiate landing rights and runs headlong into the self-righteous Lorcans' claim that Earthlings will taint their world. He and Lockley also explore their relationship further. Never assume to know, while the Excalibur does research above Lorca 7, they are also finally granted access to the great machine beneath Babylon 5. A team, consisting of Chambers, Jurij, and a reluctant Gideon, goes there. Gideon and Lockley find it a bit awkward. Chambers, to her surprise, is not allowed into the machine, and as Jurij enters it, she learns of a planet they should go to, and of many more she does not want to tell. Meanwhile, the expedition on Lorca 7 comes fed up with Ilison and teaches him a lesson. Pendragon the crew checks out the planet Jurij got from the Great Machine. They find a Drakh lab and many useful researches. Of course, there are some leftover Drakh, which they have to overcome. The Drakh eventually flee and Gideon hopes to catch them. Matheson supports leaving orbit for that, despite having to leave behind the ground team for a while. They cannot catch up with the Drakh and decide to return to the planet. But shortly before the episode ends, a strange ship appears and takes Jurij away. The walls of hell, Jurij is still missing, and all efforts to find her through conventional means have failed. At Matheson's urging, Gideon tries asking the Apocalypse box. At first the box responds simply Jurij is unimportant, but when pressed it says bring me Matheson. Though neither are happy at the prospect, Matheson feels responsible for Jurij's capture and agrees to be alone with the box as it requests. The box, or the entity within, joins with Matheson's mind, making his eyes glow and drastically enhancing his psi ability. Knowing it won't last and unable to block out the thoughts of those near him, Matheson has Gideon clear the crew off the bridge and takes telepathic control of the ship's systems, essentially becoming the Excalibur. With his new abilities he takes the ship to dark space, a strange region of hyperspace left over by the shadows. However, the longer he has his powers the more crazed and egomaniacal he becomes. When Gideon realizes that the box has corrupted him, he tries to throw Matheson into the brig. Matheson senses his thoughts and locks down the ship, turns the intruder systems against the Marines, and refuses to relinquish his control. The rest of the story features Gideon and Matheson experiencing surreal telepathically induced flashbacks, Matheson to an incident in his childhood where he accidentally hurt somebody with his psi ability, and Gideon to a gambling incident that saved a friend but cost his opponent her life. Gideon manages to save Matheson by finally channeling the entity back through himself into the box. The mists of hyperspace. Matheson has no memory of the incident in the last episode, while Gideon seems to be still connected to the box somehow. He asks the box what to do in dark space, and it directs him to an abandoned Drakh station there, from which they had apparently started their previous attacks. One ship is waiting in the void. They rush aboard and suddenly find Jurij, who is sitting there with a strange sword at her side, and having defeated all Drakh. Jurij only confines in Galen what she has experienced. She was taken by a race of noble warriors, who changed her mind and made her a galactic knight. Meanwhile, as per its orders, Gideon takes the box to the Drakh ship and it interfaces with it. This way it extracts the position of the Drakh fleet. Drakh fate, Gideon launches an attack on the waiting Drakh fleet, despite Galen's clear objections. It becomes a bloody fight, in which the Excalibur is nearly destroyed, before Captain Lockley arrives with her old ship and saves the Excalibur. It turns out that Matheson had contacted her, after catching a thought in the captain's mind that had made him suspicious. The fight ends, with Gideon believing that they had destroyed all Drakh now. Lockley knows better, having seen one of the ships fleeing to Centauri Prime. But she does not tell Gideon, instead asks for a connection to Minbar. This is the end of our first season. Crusade Season 2 starts with the following episode. Those who cannot defend themselves, the Excalibur is exploring a dead world. It too had been destroyed by a shadow plague. Jurij, who is searching places where no of the others would go, surprisingly finds a bunch of alien children. It turns out that they have survived the plague somehow. Ilison and at the Apocalypse box and urging also Gideon, want to examine the frighted children. Jurij defends them against the entire crew of the Excalibur. Season 2, Episode 2, The Longest Night. Still on the same planet, a storm surprises a research team in a damaged alien house. Ilison and Chambers lead their team to the basement, trying to get save. The corridors collapse and cut the team off. We stay with them through 2 days, where they are trapped. Chambers gets very emotional and even seemingly crazy as she cannot treat the wounded members of the team. Ilison can talk her down a bit and they are rescued in time. Value judgments, Gideon's crew go to a colony to inspect an archaeological dig. An alien vault is guarded by a door with a telepathic lock. Matheson is not powerful enough to open it, so they seek out the telepath that lives nearby for help. Matheson is alarmed when they discover this telepath is Alfred Bester, who has become a hunted criminal. Matheson is dumbfounded that his crewmates even consider asking the telepath for his help. Max Ilison and Jurij Nafil are willing to overlook Bester's past if he can help with their mission, and Dr. Chambers seems to side with Matheson. This leaves Gideon to make a decision that half his crew won't agree with. Charging and defending, the Excalibur returns to Earth once more. From the data they have already collected, a new space station has been built which can fully sterilize any non-living thing coming from planet Earth. The Excalibur is there to check its operation. After the first successful test, an assembly of the government and the Joint Chiefs comes aboard to talk to Gideon about the whole Shadow hybrid incident. Gideon also learns of the Technomage's connections to the Shadows, strengthening his doubts about Galen. Some heated discussions later, Gideon is at peace with the whole thing for now. Grooving Galen, in this light-hearted episode, the crew tries to find an informant on a party planet. Galen finds himself in some tricky situations, where even magic doesn't help. Gideon runs into some Locklear pleasure holograms and Jurij takes out the local Thieves Guild cell, finally cutting all her ties with her past. Backed into a corner, when the Excalibur picks up a group of alien researchers, who are willing to help Earth, one of them actually has another objective: he sabotages the data aboard the Excalibur. Ylison is furious and wants to hunt down and torture the saboteur. Gideon is against revenge, so Ylison and Gideon race each other through the ship. Despite Ylison arriving at the saboteur first, Gideon wins in the end, sending the saboteur back to Minbar for trial. The Bark. Gideon locks himself into his room often, being, according the board chatter, away more often than Galen. We learn that Gideon is talking to the Apocalypse box for hours. It tells him finally to go to a specific location in hyperspace, where an old Vorlon ship is adrift. Everyone is quite dazzled, as Gideon goes over to the ship and boards it. The box connects itself with the ship and gives Gideon a bunch of new coordinates to check out, telling him to keep them a secret. Matheson can feel the box's influence, but cannot identify it. Worried, he does not stop Ylison when he is thinking about installing surveillance in Gideon. Ghosts of Future Present, the Excalibur is picking up an emergency signal from Gideon's old explorer ship. Arriving at the site, the ship is completely shot to pieces, with none of the crew having survived. The crew of the Excalibur is searching the wreck for clues who attacked it, when a strut breaks down and hits Ylison. The man falls into a coma. It turns out that there is a Rouge maintenance bot aboard, who is damaging the ship more in cross-wired attempts to fix it. Gideon takes it out. But the question of who attacked the ship still remains. And Ylison is still in a coma. Tristan and a group of young ambitious scientists comes aboard the Excalibur, led by the charming Tristan. The goal of the team is to go to Earth and try to adapt a technology found on an alien world to the humans there. They are sure that their cure works as a constant inhibitor on themselves. While the Excalibur transports them to Earth, Dr. Sarah Chambers falls madly in love with Tristan. When she learns of the man's objective, she is quite mad at first, then she changes her mind, proclaiming Tristan a hero in front of everyone. The rest of the crew manages to talk Chambers out of the idea of going with him. In the meantime, Jurij is trying to get Galen to save Ylison using his techno-magic. The Green Knight, Gideon, emerges from his room after having been absent for the entire last episode. He directs the Excalibur to an uninhabited moon in a remote system. Underground, they find a secret old research station of Vorlon-like design. Gideon wants to take the place apart. Galen, who recognizes the design, warns everyone, even trying to hold them back by force. Gideon gets very angry, finally believing his box, who had said that Galen is not trustworthy. However, Galen was right. The lab is guarded by an automated defense system, powering up an immense green robot, which hunts the researchers. Galen and Jurij manage to save everyone by tricking the robot over a cliff. Gideon again disappears into his room. And finally, we get to the midpoint of the series. The secret of the mage, Gideon has another set of coordinates ready. But before he can place the Excalibur on a course, a ship arrives from Earth. It is Tristan's team, who have had a dangerous accident with the virus on the planet, and are now exposed to a much more deadly variant of it. Sarah Chambers immediately takes them into care, promising to find the cure. Meanwhile, the ship arrives on an old abandoned world. Galen says nothing. They land and start the survey. It is an incredible world, but Gideon is not interested in most discoveries and seems to be talking to himself. In orbit, the crew detects a dangerous anomaly, a Type 1 supernova about to occur. But the whole danger tone disappears completely, as the ground team detects a lab which not only contains detailed information about the Drakh plague but also a generator for a cure. The generator is immediately started to manufacture a cure. Because of the danger, most of the ground team returns to the ship, but Galen goes to an abandoned complex and activates some kind of machine. A force shield powers up around the whole planet. The crew in orbit is baffled and the ground team goes over to Galen. In the complex they discover that this planet is really the original home world of the Technomages, from the time they were shadow agents. Furious about the discovery that Galen's people always had the cure ready, Gideon takes out the box, which he had been carrying with him, and uses it to attack Galen. The crew in orbit detects the massive energy from the fight, but at that time the supernova does occur and the Excalibur has to make a jump into hyperspace. Being hit by the nova while in the vortex, the ship gets thrown away into the depths of hyperspace. On the planet, Gideon and Galen are still fighting, destroying the complex in the process. Finally, Jurij jumps between the two, severing the energy bands with her sword. There is a flash of light. This is where we leave off for now. The crew of the Excalibur has now found the cure and has stumbled upon some dark secrets. Clearly, the story is not yet over. And thus, we will continue next time with part 2. Please note that everything presented here is simply the results of an experiment. No part of this presentation is intended as a correction of an existing story or claims to be the real story. The selection or omission of any parts of the source material is not to be understood as commentary, positive or negative, on the original productions. These are simply thoughts and experiments based on existing material, and none of it could be created without the work of all those involved in creating the original works. As with any scientific result, you may utilize any of the story ideas that resulted from these experiments for your own experiments or production, while citing this experiment as its source. It is now closing time for our lab. Goodbye until next time.